Greetings and welcome to another video in our series about VoiceAttack, the Elite VA plugin and Elite Dangerous. In this episode, we're going to look at our request docking command we made in an earlier episode. We're going to do some enhancements to it to make it a little bit better. Let's go back into where we were. And it was in ship commands, request docking. The one thing we could do is we could add in some more variations. So if we copy this, and I like to do this in Notepad++ because it's just a bit more convenient. We bring up a new thing there, paste it in and zoom in a little bit so we can make it easier to see. With the VoiceAttack, as we've covered in other episodes, we can do dynamic commands, so we can have more phrases for the voice triggers. What could we add in here? We could have in another option here for clearance if we wanted to. So we could do bracket. And the handy thing about this, there you go, you can spell check it as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a semicolon and then close the bracket. That makes this section here optional. So as long as the last word in the brackets has a semicolon, everything inside it is an optional trigger. So we can now say request docking or request docking clearance. We could also add in access. There you go. So we can say request docking access, request docking clearance. We could also add more into here if we wanted to. We could do send docking. We could have either request or send docking access or clearance. But we'll leave it like that for the moment, but you get the idea. We could just have more variations. Let me go back in here and then do that. We can enclose that down there. And we'll zoom back out so we can see more of that. And we'll get back to that in a minute. You can now say request, docking, send, docking, access or clearance. We could also put in something to stop false triggers. We only want to have the command run if we're outside a starport or spaceport. What we can do is we can go back to the status file and we can use some of the variables in here to determine if we're in normal space or not. What we want to know is are we in the mothership, which is here, so that's true. If we copy that, other, and we're going to do a compound condition builder this time. If we're not in the mothership, so false, or, and then we want to know, are we docked? There we go, there, that one there. If we're docked equals true, or, and where's it landed? Okay, there's landed at the very bottom. Or if landed equals true, or supercruise equals true. But what we're doing there is we're saying if we're not in the mothership, which means we're on foot in the SRV or a fighter, or we're docked, which means we're in a spaceport, but we can still be in the ship, or we're landed on the planet's surface, which means we can still be in the ship. And if we're in supercruise, we're still in the ship, but we're not in normal space. We're trying to stop the command running accidentally. If any of those are valid, we want to exit the command if any of those conditions are met. We just need to move that up one. So that will be the first thing it checks. And if that all passes, then it will continue with the rest of the command. So we should really go and test it, shouldn't we? We're now in a station. So if we Resume listening. We'll try and see if we can get the command to work. Request docking. The command triggered, or it picked up the command, but nothing happened because we're docked. And if we disembark onto the landing pad, it shouldn't do anything anyway, but it's going to try and press some keys, so we see what happens. Actually, what we can do, we can be clever. Put that back on there for 2 secs. If we go back in edit command, we can put a little write to log. That's way we can have this write to the log if the command runs after the condition is checked there. Request docking. We didn't see anything in the log, so we know it must work. Or if we now undock, we can test it. So now we're outside the station. Let's see if the docking request command works. Request docking. Voila, it works, and it's going to take us back inside again. And we can see everything did exactly what we wanted it to do, which is great. We'll let that carry on docking in the background, and let's go back and edit the command. And then we can then delete this. If we don't need it anymore, it's served its purpose. Whilst you're making a command, you can always right click and disable an action, just so you've got it there. You've already got it there in case you need to do some more testing. But in this case, I'm fairly confident this is going to work. We can just go and delete it. We could make this a little tidier by putting loops in. Yeah, we could, for example, just do loop start twice, like this. And then we could just either way, what we can get rid of that then. That it just makes it a little shorter, a little tidier. Doesn't really matter one way or the other, I don't think, with speed. But we'll do it just because it makes it a little tidier. So we've done that, apply that. So we're good with that bit. That all works nicely. So the other thing we can look at is the auto docking with the auto docking computer. Now this bit is going to get a little bit, well, actually it's going to get quite a bit technical. And you'll see why in a minute. This is something I made off camera because it was quite involved in making it and testing it, and trying to do it all onto camera would have been a nightmare. So I made it in the best Blue Peter fashion. Here's one I prepared earlier, and this is in here. This will check to see if we have a docking computer, either an advanced or a standard. We can check for it in one of two ways. In the journal file, we have loads and loads of information about the ship. We also have the modules file, which is this here. The problem with the modules file is it's only updated when you look at the modules tab in either the ship or the SRV. If you change ship in the shipyard, this won't update until you actually look at that modules panel in the game. So instead, I've used the loadout information in the main journal file, which is in, there you go, there. So I've copied it out into another file to make it easier to see. Now you notice it's in reverse order. And the very top line there is it tells us the length of the modules. In this case, it's 27. I know it says 26 there, but it counts from 0. So if we scroll down to the very bottom, the first one is 0. So this is quite handy. It tells us our ship, the ship ID, our name, the ident, its hull value, the value of the modules, so how much it's worth, our hull health, our unladen mass, cargo capacity, maximum jump range, our fuel capacity, our reserve, our rebuy cost, what type of paint job, and so on. And we can also see if modules are enabled or disabled. Their priority, which is the power priority, their current health, what it is, and then the item, and so on and so forth. Now with this file, it doesn't correspond directly to the modules list in the ship. If we pop into the ship quickly, you see on here, the first module is thrusters. If we go back into the file, so the first module slot in here is the paint job. Then we've got the armor. Then we've got the power plant. And then we come to the engines in slot 3. It also tells us in here if they're engineered or not. And this is all the engineering values for that particular module, which is the thrusters. It tells you who the engineer was, the blueprint ID, what we've got on it, what modifiers, all the way through. And then we come into the FSD. And then we can see what modifiers we got on it from the engineer. And as we scroll through, we can see more and more information about what we've got. But in this case, we're looking for the docking computer. She's in here somewhere. Let's do a search. Okay, there we go, found it. So in this case, everything here is to do with docking computer. This is what we're looking for. So you might be thinking, how do we find something in here? Well, this is what this does here. What we want to do is we want to search this loadout section to see if we can find a docking computer. We need to do a loop. So we're going to set here a variable called mod loop, which is a command scoped variable, so it only exists while this command's running. As soon as the command finishes, it's gone. So we set that to 0. And I'll put a little annotation in here. Loops through the current ship's loadout to check if we have the docking computer. If you want to do one of these, you go to Other, Advanced, and then you can do Add a comment to the action list, or you've got the Alt-X shortcut. You're going to type in what you want. Okay, and I'll add it in. So this is where it does the bulk of the work. Now I'm going to copy this out and put it into Notepad++ to make it a bit easier to read in a minute. But what it does is it's doing a loop. So we're looking for, so while the loadout module and the mod loop number does not contain int docking computer, keep looping, and it will keep looping while the module's length is less than the mod loop value. It does sound a bit complicated, and I get that. Maybe if I make it more visual, you'll see. So if I enable this here, Now this, hang on 1 sec. So I've now enabled it. So when I press the 0 key on the keyboard, we can get this command to run. There you go. Now you can see it's run. If I make this a little bit bigger temporarily. So what we've done is we've looped through the loadout module section, and it's outputting each module it's found as it's going through. We've got armor grade, and if we look over here, there we go, we've got armor grade, power plant, engine size, life support. So it's gone through looking through each entry. It's looking for everything on that particular entry, moving around 8, 9, 11, etc. As it hits 18, we've got the docking comp there. Let's go back in and I'll break it down a bit more. Now if I go in there and I copy this out here, and if we then do this one here, so you can see that these lines are pretty much identical except for this bit here. So in that bit there, all we're doing is saying, whilst that variable does not contain that bit of text, keep looping. So all we've done is we've taken the mod loop value there, which was initially set to 0, and we've replaced the item number with the variable. When you want to add a variable into another variable, you need to put it in the squarely brackets. It'll just be a case of delete. And then we need to do the variable type, the variable name, and then close the squarely brackets. And it's now using that value instead of a hard-coded number. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. If not, let us know in the comments. And then this bit here is just doing a check to say if the mod loop value is less than the overall module length, that one there, keep looping. This way, if we don't have a docking computer, the loop will break at the end. And the other thing I've got in there is this. So if I enable that, okay, that, because this is what this bit's checking for here. We do the loop. If we find something or don't find something, as the case may be, the loop will exit. If we then have a docking computer, it will tell us what type it is, whether it's a standard docking comp, which is for auto docking only, or an advanced one, which is auto launch and auto land if we want to plant surface. So it just sets another variable docking comp to either standard, advanced, or none. If we now come out of that, clear this, and we do, and it tells us the docking comp is advanced. If you've not used the auto dock, you have to be at 0 speed for it to engage. What we can do is we can put a little check in to say, if you have a docking computer, either a standard or advanced, once you've requested docking, and we've got clearance, we can idle down to 0 on the throttle. So we can come out of that. So now we know we have a docking computer. We can put a check in to auto dock if we have one. If we go back into the profile, and if we look in events, we want docking granted. Okay. So when we get a docking request granted, we should have something trigger in here. And we can just do a quick test to make sure. We go back to the game quick. I'm going to turn off the docking comp. Just so we don't dock. Request docking. So now we've got the docking request. We can see it's popped up, docking is granted. So I'm going to cancel that. So now we know we've got the docking request is granted. What we can do is we can get rid of that. So what we can now do is we can do a check to see if we got the docking comp or not. Other. Next, if the docking comp doesn't equal none, then we should have a docking computer. At which point we need to find our bindings and the throttle. Okay, so there we go. That's what we're looking for. Our set speed to 0. Key press. That way, when we request docking and docking is granted, it will automatically throttle us back to 0, which should then engage the docking computer. So we'll give it a go and see what happens. I'm going to go a little bit of speed. Request docking. Okay, and that's all done automatically. Pretty good, eh? That's some enhancements to the request docking command. Hopefully it made sense. If it doesn't, please let me know. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, what do you think, put them in the comments section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you've enjoyed the video or found it useful, click the like button, and if you haven't already, hit the subscribe too, and share the video out. Until the next one, take care, and I'll see you soon. Toodles!